Yo, Claressa Shields just did the unthinkable. She didn't celebrate the biggest win of her year. She didn't pop champagne with her married man. Nah. She woke up the next morning, grabbed her phone, and called Remy Ma a bitter ex-wife. On a public app, for the whole world to screen grab. But here's the part that's gonna make your jaw hit the floor. There's no ex anything, because legally, that divorce does not exist. No decree, no judge's signature, nothing. So the self-proclaimed GWAT just went to war with a woman who is still, on paper, the wife. And the wild part? She aimed at Amanda Serrano, Alycia Baumgardner, and Remy in the same meltdown, on tweets she wasn't even tagged in. That's not confidence. Yo, that's a crash out with a ring walk. And Claressa really thought this was a good idea. She didn't just sign her own receipt. She notarized it. Before we get into it, like, subscribe, don't miss it. Nah. All right, yo, let's set the scene. Because what happened on the morning of August 16th, 2026, deserves a full documentary breakdown. Hours earlier, on the night of August 15th, Claressa Shields, the self-proclaimed GWAT, the undisputed champion out of Flint, Michigan, had just headlined a sold-out show at State Farm Arena in Atlanta, becoming the first woman ever to headline a professional boxing event in that building. The city showed up. Celebrities filled the seats. This was supposed to be her coronation weekend. And it was. In the ring, she handled business against Kaye Scott in front of her people, and by every boxing metric, the night belonged to her. But here's where the story flips. Instead of waking up to confetti, endorsement calls, and victory posts, Claressa woke up and went hunting. Sometime that morning, on X, formerly Twitter, she replied to a fan account's tweet that she was not tagged in. The tweet was about Amanda Serrano and Alycia Baumgardner supposedly teaming up out of pure hate for her. And Claressa, the freshly crowned winner, less than 24 hours removed from the biggest night of her year, jumped into that thread and added a name nobody asked for, Remy Ma. She called her the bitter ex-wife, and then she branded the whole group of women with that 304 label for good measure. Let that sink in. A champion. On her victory morning. Searching for disrespect she wasn't even mentioned in, dragging a woman who wasn't in the building, wasn't in the sport, and wasn't thinking about her. Sis really woke up off a career-defining win, and chose to fight everybody except a ranked opponent. The ring walk was legendary. The morning after, a mess. Now let's pull the receipts, because the receipts are where this whole thing falls apart. Let's start with the smoking gun itself. On the morning of August 16th, a fan account posted about the stepped-on black girl Alycia Baumgardner and the wavy-haired Puerto Rican Amanda Serrano teaming up out of hate for Claressa. And Claressa quote-hopped straight into the conversation with 3 laughing emojis and wrote, "You forgot the bitter ex-wife." Then she followed it up with these 304s are pathetic. When I first saw that screen grab, I had to blink twice and read it again. Ex-wife? Ex? Sis, there's no judge on this earth who has signed that paperwork, and deep down, you know it. Receipt number 2. A couple of days before the fight, somebody tweeted at Claressa, "God doesn't bless side chicks." And Claressa, who had every single option to scroll past that tweet and keep training, instead responded, "Thank God I'm not one. Which would they be?" Hold up. So you're denying the side chick title in the same week you out here calling the actual legal wife an ex? Make it make sense. That's like robbing a bank and stopping to correct the teller's grammar on the way out the door. The confidence is impressive. The logic is criminal. Receipt number 3. A user told her she'd never be the quote-unquote GWAT because Katie and Amanda are way ahead, meaning Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. Claressa fired back. Haha, I box better than both of them. I love Katie, but Amanda just come forward and eat punchies. Bro said what? Because this is the same Claressa who, not that long ago, publicly claimed she and Amanda Serrano share the GWOAT title. When I read that flip-flop, I had to do a full double take. So Amanda was your co-GWOAT write-up until she signed with MVP and started showing up around Remy Ma's video shoot? Now she just eats punches? Nah, that's not boxing analysis. That's jealousy with jab technique. Receipt number 4. Claressa quote-tweeted a post saying Alycia Baumgardner was somewhere biting blood out of her bottom lip, swinging at the air, trying not to crash out, and Claressa co-signed every word of it, declaring herself the face of women's boxing, and it ain't even close at all, before adding keep hating and promoting her with 2 money sign emojis. That line right there, that's where she lost the plot completely. You're the face of women's boxing, but you're up at sunrise subtweeting women in weight classes you can't even physically fight? Okay, champ. Okay. Receipt number 5, and this one is a straight body blow. Franchon Crews-Dezurn, the undisputed heavy-hitting diva herself, a woman who went 12 rounds with Claressa back in February, a fight ESPN covered as a unanimous decision win for Shields, hit Instagram with this. 304, is you cool? I didn't even watch, but this popped up. Hit her so hard she trying even harder to copy and paste. But I'm not your fave girl. The plagiarism is crazy. Not an original bone in that body. You can keep pretending, but you will never be me. She's talking about the falcon on the back of Claressa's ring walk cape in Atlanta. A bird that looks a whole lot like the falcon Franchon has been flying across her personal brand for years. When I read not an original bone in that body, I said OHH out loud in my living room. And notice something. Claressa's only reply to ANY of this was 3 laughing emojis. That's it. That's the entire defense. No denial. No explanation. Just emojis. And receipt number 6. Straight from the other side of the ring. At Angie Martinez's summer barbecue earlier this month, Remy Ma told the crowd herself that she's not single, because a divorce from Papoose is not finalized, allegedly because it's trying to take half of her life earnings. Reportedly, she said he spent her money while she was locked up on women and on property she knew nothing about. So when Claressa says bitter ex-wife, the wife in question is literally standing on a public stage telling the world the paperwork is still sitting on somebody's desk. Those are the quotes. Those are the receipts. Now let's connect the dots. Now that we've got the quotes on the table, let's lay out the chessboard, because the timing is where this whole thing completely falls apart for Claressa. Rewind to May 2025. Papoose files a divorce and publicly claims Remy cheated. That filing is now over a year old, and there is still no finalized decree. Everybody actually paying attention already knew the marriage was legally alive. So that ex-wife tweet? It wasn't just messy, it was factually wrong on arrival. Any smart person with a team around them would have checked that before hitting send. But we are not dealing with strategy here. We're dealing with impulse. Fast forward to April of this year. Remy drops WYFL, and reportedly a cease and desist comes flying in from the other side's legal camp over that record. Remy doesn't fold. She keeps her foot on the gas. Then, hours before Claressa even steps through the ropes on August 15th, Remy drops one ago, and word is Amanda Serrano is attached to the video, with MVP Promotions posting Serrano and Baumgardner over the song's audio. Read that again slowly. While Claressa was in the locker room getting her hands wrapped for the biggest fight of her year, her 3 biggest whoops were riding to the exact same beat. That's not a coincidence. That is a coordinated OPP rotation, and it clearly lived rent-free in her head. Because less than 24 hours later, she was hunting down tweets she wasn't tagged in just a fire back. And let's sit with that detail for a second. That post, the one with the 304's line, nobody at her. Her name was nowhere in it, which means she was searching, scrolling her own mentions and her whoops names at breakfast time after the biggest night of her career. You might have missed that, but that search bar behavior tells you everything about who's actually obsessed with who. Winners don't refresh their mentions at 9 a.m. looking for smoke. People who feel the walls moving do. Now the Franchon layer, because this didn't start with a cape. During Claressa's press run around that February fight, the one Forbes scored a 190 shutout. She went on the Breakfast Club. She went on Angela Yee's platform, talking reckless about Franchon, and reportedly Franchon's legal team had to step in with a cease and desist of their own. That's why the Falcon tweet only got laughing emojis. She legally cannot say that woman's name anymore. So the ONE person who might have a real intellectual property grievance is the ONE person Claressa can't clap back at. Any advisor worth a dime would have told her to chill months ago. But Claressa doesn't have advisors. She has trigger fingers. And the MVP piece? That ban came down after her physical altercation with Baumgardner at an MVP event. ESPN reported MVP banned her from all future events, calling the conduct unacceptable, and even the BBC ran the story. Ban means banned. From their cards, their sponsor events, their networking rooms, their Netflix pipeline. So that victory lap narrative about doing it without Jake Paul, without Netflix. She didn't choose that route. She was escorted off that route by security. So Franchon fired her shot right after the fight, and MVP amplified Remy's record on fight night? That's terrible timing management all around. Brew. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Put your gloves on. We're going full detective now, because the devil isn't a word choice, and Claressa's word choice is making confessions she doesn't even realize. Zoom into ONE word from that reply. Ex. Not wife. Not his wife. Not Papoose's wife. She specifically needs Remy to be an EX. Think about what that word costs her. Every single day that divorce stays on finalized, Claressa's whole public position boils down to girlfriend of somebody's husband. That X isn't an insult, it's a wish. She tweeted her dream scenario and dressed it up as a drag. And once you catch that, you realize the tweet tells on her, not Remy. Meanwhile, Remy is sitting over there holding the actual marriage certificate and didn't have to say a single word. Chess, not checkers, and Sis is playing Candyland. Now check the phrase which with AB. Nobody is talking about how calculated that spelling was. She didn't type the full word. She censored herself on an app where she calls women 304s daily. Why? Because she knows that word, typed out in full at a specific person, becomes evidence. She wanted the insult without the liability. That's a move of somebody who's been sitting in a lawyer's office recently. And Claressa really didn't think we'd catch that? That's embarrassing. You can't be the raw, unfiltered quote and a K-ful legal editor in the same sentence. Pick a lane. Third layer, the laughing emojis on the Franchon situation. Count them. 3. Every single time. Here's a forensic read. Those emojis aren't amusement. They're muzzle. When you've allegedly got a cease and desist hanging over your head, the laughing emoji is the only punch you're still allowed to throw. Watch the pattern across every Franchon-related tweet. Mockery, never denial. Never once, I didn't copy anything. In court-adjacent situations, the absence of denial is the answer. And if Franchon had half the support Claressa gets from the glazing blogs, this Falcon thing would be headline news by now. Fourth layer, and this one's about the cape itself. The Falcon. Franchon has been flying that bird across a brand for years. Of all the animals, all the symbols on God's green earth, the self-made, not an original bone in that body champion picks her former friend's trademark bird for her coronation night in Atlanta. That's not random. Yo! When you're that deep into somebody's aura, imitation becomes muscle memory. Freeze frame that ring walk, the sold-out crowd, the stars in the building, history being made, and she still needed Franchon's bird on her back to feel complete. Franchon might think that cape was a fashion choice. Nah, brew. That was a tribute disguised as a theft. And the last forensic note, look at WHO she swings on and who she spays. I love Katie, but Katie Taylor gets a pass. Amanda, Alycia, Remy, Franchon all get the smoke. Katie's the one with the biggest crossover checks and the most institutional power in the sport. And she gets love? That's not respect. That's fear of punching up at the one name with real power behind it. If Claressa's circle had a single real strategist in it, somebody would have flagged that pattern before she hit send. That's a core problem with Claressa. She doesn't read the room. She just sets it on fire. Now let's see how the media covered all of this. Now let's check how the outlets framed this, because the narrative split is crazy, and once you line the coverage up against the timeline, the spin becomes obvious. Some outlets framed this round as Remy Ma reigniting the feud. Headline energy like Remy was the aggressor for dropping one ago hours before the bell. But remember those receipts from earlier? The trigger fingers, the morning after tweet spree, the bitter ex-wife line fired at a woman who never mentioned her. Remy dropped a song. Claressa dropped the whole timeline. One of those is art. The other is a diary entry with a blue check mark. The framing that Remy started this round does not survive contact with the actual sequence of events. The sports outlets covered the MVP ban from the business angle, the altercation with Baumgardner, the consequences, Claressa blasting back and saying she can go to any boxing event she wants. Cool quote. Confident soundbite. But cross-check that against the context we laid out. This is the same fighter who, according to the chatter around Fight Week, wanted nothing more than to be back inside those MVP rooms. The outlets printed the I don't care spin. The behavior printed the exact opposite. The coverage framed her as defiant. The receipts framed her as locked out and loud about it. And when it came to the Serrano situation, the coverage leaned hard into a war of words between two icons framing, very both sides, very diplomatic, very safe. But hold on. A war requires two armies firing. Amanda's side reportedly posted something about not needing to put other people down to feel great, about respect among peers. That's a subtweet with class. Claressa's side is calling women 304s at 9 in the morning. That's not a war of words. That's one woman fencing and the other swinging a folding chair. Then there's a coverage of Papoose's divorce filing and the cheating claims, his side of the story neatly packaged and widely circulated. But notice what almost none of the mainstream write-ups pair it with. The fact that well over a year later there's still no decree, and Remy is on stage at Angie Martinez's barbecue telling the crowd he's holding it up over money. Now, some Claressa fans are saying all of this is cap, that she's a GWOT, she's undefeated, and the haters are just jealous of a sold-out Atlanta. Here's why that doesn't hold up. Nobody on this side is disputing the win. We're disputing what she did with the moment. You don't sell out State Farm Arena and then spend your victory morning fighting women who weren't even in the building unless the W wasn't the real prize. The media wants to glaze the gate numbers, but the receipts don't lie, and if you still think Claressa has a point after all this, you didn't read the timeline. You just watched the ring walk. But here's what nobody is saying out loud. The mainstream narrative is simple and comfortable. Champion wins. Champion claps back at haters. Champion is unbothered. The blogs are eating it up. The shade accounts are glazing. Everybody loves a coronation, and nobody wants to ask the uncomfortable question during the parade. So let me ask it. Here's what they won't tell you. This was never about boxing. This is about a woman who is losing the ONLY fight she can't punch her way out of, a divorce court fight where she isn't even a party. She's just evidence. Let me cook. Follow the money and the motive. Remy Ma has allegedly said, on a public stage, in front of cameras, that the man holding up this divorce is the same man currently parading Claressa around. Half of her life earnings is reportedly sitting on that table. Now think about what that means strategically. Every single tweet Claressa fires off. Bitter ex-wife. These 304s are pathetic. Which would they be? Is a public disparagement of the woman Papoose is currently in divorce negotiations with. And family court judges read blogs. Y'all. Attorneys screen grab everything. Remy's legal team didn't have to lift a single finger this weekend. Claressa woke up on her victory morning and hand-delivered them an exhibit binder with a blue checkmark stamped on the cover. That's not a drag. That's discovery. And that is a forbidden take. Claressa Shields is not Remy Ma's OPP. She is Remy Ma's witness. Her own thumbs are building the case that the man at the center of this entanglement is running a public humiliation campaign against his still legal wife. You think a judge won't care that the girlfriend is on X calling the estranged wife bitter, while the husband allegedly stoles the paperwork over money? Please. That is exactly the kind of evidence that turns a quiet settlement into a blowout. Now layer the psychological warfare on top, because this is where it gets dark for Claressa. Look at the target selection one more time. Amanda Serrano, the woman she once said she shared the crown with, only became a punch-eater after she got into business with MVP and allegedly into Remy's video. Alycia only became a punchline after the MVP ban. Franchon only became a target after she stopped being a friend. And Remy, the wife, gets the worst title of them all. X. Do you see the pattern yet? Claressa isn't responding to disrespect. She's responding to abandonment. Every single person who chose a door she can't walk through got the trigger fingers. That's not GWOT behavior. That's pick-me behavior with a championship belt. And I say that with genuine love for the sport. Because here's a part that actually hurts to say out loud. Claressa Shields is generational in the ring. Undefeated. Multi-division. A legit first ballot Hall of Famer who just made history in Atlanta. And she spent the morning after a sold-out showcase fighting for a man's narrative instead of her own legacy. She is out here rewriting her history to protect his storyline. He's separated. The wife is bitter. The divorce is basically done, when the paperwork says the exact opposite. The whole power couple persona is manufactured, and it's falling apart in real time, one laughing emoji at a time. Remy doesn't need to respond. She's moving records while Claressa is arguing with fan accounts that have 200 followers. One of these women is playing chess with a lawyer on speed dial. The other is playing checkers with a ring light. And that's the truth they won't tell you. The blogs will run the ring walk footage on a loop. They will not run the reason a champion needed 4 women's names in her mouth to enjoy one victory. So what happens next? Let's go ahead and look forward, because this story has legs, and I've got 3 scenarios for you all. Scenario 1, the most likely outcome. Remy says nothing directly. No name drops. No tweet replies. No Instagram lives. She just keeps moving exactly the way she's been moving. Records, stages, BBQs, chart positions, because silence from a wife is louder than any clapback could ever be. And when that silence stretches on, week after week, Claressa's gonna look desperate screaming into the void, replying to fan accounts while Remy's face is on playlist covers. The bitter ex-wife tweet is gonna age like milk on a summer sidewalk, because every day that decree stays unsigned, Remy's public status stays exactly what it is. The wife. Mark my words, that tweet is getting screen-grabbed into a courtroom exhibit, and when it does, Claressa's gonna wish those 3 laughing emojis were her ONLY public statements on record. The silence is going to hurt her worse than any diss track ever could. Scenario TWO. The alternative path, and you better pray for Claressa this doesn't happen. Remy does respond. Not with a tweet, with music. We're talking a full diss record run. Maybe a video, maybe Amanda Serrano and Alycia Baumgardner in the frame like the teasers have been hinting at. If that drops, it's over. Because Remy Ma with a legal pad and a grudge is the most dangerous version of Remy Ma that exists. She survived battle rap. She survived prison. She survived watching her husband move on in public. She is built for petty with stamina. We all saw what happened the last time somebody kept her name in their mouth after she warned them. And Claressa is not ready for what's coming if Remy takes her seriously. She's a fighter, not a writer, and her opponent this time writes bars for a living. You don't bring a jab to a pen fight. Scenario 3, the wild card, the industry impact. Zoom all the way out. MVP has Serrano. MVP has Baumgardner. MVP has the Netflix pipeline, the crossover machinery, the biggest stages in the sport, and now, apparently, a working relationship with Remy Ma's rollout. The walls aren't closing in on Claressa. They are already closed. Looking at the bigger picture, the next quality opponent, the next big stage, the next crossover moment is all flowing through doors she's currently banned from. 5 years from now, people won't remember the Kaye Scott fight. They'll remember the morning after, when the champ called a married woman an ex-wife while her opponents were getting the bag in the same music video. This is gonna be the moment everybody points back to as a flip, when GWOT stopped meaning greatest of all time and started meaning going off on Twitter. And Claressa is watching the culture pick sides without her. There's no unanimous decision that fixes that. Whatever happens, one thing is crystal clear. The champ already lost the only fight that wasn't in the ring. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed uncovering the real story, smash that like button and hit subscribe so you never miss when we expose what everyone else is too scared to say. Ring that bell for notifications. And if you want more truth bombs like this, click on one of these videos next. Trust me, you'll want to see what we found. And by the way, tomorrow we're dropping something wild about the Franchon Falcon situation and what that cease and desist actually says. You do not want to miss that.